bring more people into the Blue Badge campaign. We are, without a doubt, trying to make sure that we connect with the citizens here and to ensure that we have that relationship, and I'm sure you're going to see that going forward.
That's good. Thank you all. All right, our next question is, there was as I kind of gleaned from this social media and just what people were saying, I seen that these events were stemming from racism, or I've seen people say these events stem from a statism problem. And so I'm going to pass this question over to Ms. Laura over here about racism in the American power structure. How could you just quickly just kind of give the people insight on what the racist worldview is here in America and how that affects policing in the justice system? Just kind of give them just like a small dot.
Just real quick.
She's like, that'll be about an hour a day or two.
I mean, just, briefly speaking, the United States was founded on genocide and slavery. So there's the problem from the outset, and we don't acknowledge these issues systemically or institutionally. We don't teach them in our schools. Specifically with the penal system, with the criminal justice system, I mean, it has very specific roots in practices that were created during slavery, and to make that transition from slavery to so-called emancipation. And by emancipation, I don't mean that at all. I mean just basically reproducing the institutions that existed under slavery, but under a new name. So we have things like convict leasing, Jim Crow laws, all sorts of things. And you asked me to be brief, but a lot of people, pointed to the election of Obama as, a black president as a new colorblind society, or, that kind of goes along with that sentiment, black lives don't matter, all lives matter. Well, we can't be colorblind yet because we haven't eliminated these institutions that reinforce not just racial inequality, but also class inequality, different types of inequality. We don't live in a meritocracy, no matter how much we would like to reassure ourselves of the Horatio Alger, bootstrap success story. We just don't. And we need to address these things. But also, Michelle Alexander is a really good, if you haven't read The New Jim Crow, you really should read that book, because it will give you a very good background, in some of the factual aspects of how exactly we went from de jure to de facto so-called segregation, how the fact that most of our penal institutions today exist, they overlap with plantations, with slave plantations. In fact, we've got the Louisiana State Penitentiary, just one quick example, Angola, the farm, which is an old plantation. And what do the inmates do? They farm cotton. So that's just one example of where we haven't changed. We may have changed the rhetoric, we might have changed the topic of conversation, and there's all these, we're getting distracted by saying, well, we're colorblind, or, we're human beings. It's like, well, no, we need to deal with the racial inequality first before we can go past it. We're not past it, so.
Okay. Here's another question, yes, sir? You have something on that?
Yeah, I think it's important that we recognize that this racism exists from the very youth, the number of school suspensions, the length of suspensions, the number of times that kids are taken to the office, disproportionately, in integrated schools even, disproportionately, very disproportionately, it's black kids that are punished more severely, punished more often, punished for smaller items. And we do need to instill a lot more of that, and I get a little troubled by the young lady from criminal justice students who cites the things that defend police officers. I hope you're listening carefully to the things that in fact maybe create problems because of police officers. Those are are
No,
enormous.
I do agree with everyone's comments. As James, he's in one of the classes, he knows we argue about this all the time. My whole reason of being here is just to bring out a little more, arguments from you guys, so what I say is more of things that other people won't say.
Well, and again, I understand that police officers have a perspective, and I think the chief probably personally believes that, but the history and the whole broad picture of the police departments here as well as elsewhere, maybe worse elsewhere than here, is severely problematic for black children and black youth and black young men. And I guess I would argue that, quick comment, that Tapscott, when he was police chief here, had a program where officers were supposed to park their car and get out and walk around the block. And I will tell you from personal experience, I know they parked in the nicest part of every neighborhood, sat in their car, read the paper, and then got up and walked up and down the street. So if we're going to have community contact, that's contact sport, but contact, it has to be done a lot more effectively than it was under Chief Tapscott years ago. His intention was good, but the officers didn't follow his intention very well.
Okay, we're gonna go right here. Darrell.
First and foremost, I just want to thank all of you. I really appreciate you for hosting this forum, as we briefly spoke on before, even for having Pastor Hawkins here. Just briefly, the Bible says in 2 Corinthians 5:16, know no man after the flesh. So that's the first and foremost thing we have to realize and understand, is that from a moral and biblical perspective, because America was also founded on Judeo-Christian values, that in order for us to move forward, we have to understand the moral foundation in the inner city has been decayed for decades, for a number of different reasons, okay? And in fact, you can even remember, and I'm pretty sure you are informed of this, Frederick Douglass, who was asked when the Negroes are actually going to be freed, well, what are we going to do with all of these Negroes who were once slaves? And what was his reply? He said, do nothing with them. In fact, he wanted to emphasize the importance of liberty amongst these free Africans that were once held in oppression. We also have to keep in mind that freedom doesn't just start with having you being free from chains, but it is also mentally. So education is a vital part, not just from a liberal standpoint, but also from a conservative standpoint as well. We must have balance within our communities. And as the gentleman also spoke about personal responsibility, that has to be the core of everything we stand for. You also talked about within the inner city, you have a lack of parental involvement within the school systems, but you go in suburban areas and the parents are very involved. Now, that's not a racist thing, that's just a personal responsibility thing. We have to care about our families, our children. We have to be also role models of entrepreneurship like yourself in order to bring about true economic growth. And as former Officer Willingham spoke and stated before, we have to police our own communities. We have the same oath to protect and serve just as the police. And it should never come down to us blaming the government or anyone else for this, issues that we also, in one way or the other, have helped contribute throughout the inner city and black community. So, I love you, brother, and we're going to talk even further afterwards, but hopefully those words can be received with grace as well.
Yes, sir. Right over here. You raise your hand. Yeah.
My name is DeRico Cooper, and basically I just wanted to say that there seems to be a systematic degradation of these neighborhoods. I mean, you have all these abandoned homes turning into crack houses and whatever else, and there doesn't seem to be any type of, like, you got the whole situation with General Motors and the jobs, and there's a lot of, loss of jobs, and it's like, what are these people gonna do? You're talking about spending time, saying with the families, and, it's like, and they out trying to, work 2-3 jobs to provide for the family. So where's the time to spend for the family, so it's just trying to balance between providing and actually being there, doing different things. And then you look at the military, that, being an option for a lot of people. So people have to go away, saying, okay, yeah, they're making some money, but now they're away and their life is in danger and their family's worried, praying that they don't get that call, that, they're no longer with us, And so there's just a lot of different things that are, you know, intertwined. You can't just say, oh, you know, people need to, you know, spend time, you know, here with their families or whatever like that. Like they trying to, you know, keep the family functioning, you know.
So I hear two things with both of you, and this is a real good balance. I hear responsibility with you and taking up responsibility, building your neighborhood, being involved. And from you, I'm hearing the effects of maybe of the systemic racism in America, to where people are put in conditions based on this worldview to where they may not be able to thrive as another family would, maybe in a suburban context. So I want to kind of draw this back to you to say.
I was gonna say, look.
Let me finish my question.
I'm sorry.
So, how would you connect those two? So, one, how did the worldview of racism make life problematic here in America for minorities? And how would you say, based on Darwin's perspective of taking responsibility and building a neighborhood and being involved, how would you unite those 2 points?
Well, I'm all for personal responsibility. I mean, I completely agree with that. We all have, you know, ourselves as individuals, and we make, you know, individual choices. However, within that context, there are things that are outside of ourselves, that are out of control. We have social institutions and we have structures that affect us, no matter what we do as a person. It is a documented fact that, I'm trying to get the date right, 1982, a war on drugs was declared by President Reagan and his cabinet. We now have CIA documentation that shows that they brought crack cocaine into inner city urban neighborhoods on purpose to destroy those communities. And you're talking about personal responsibility. Well, how much personal responsibility can you have when you have an international system that is designed to, you know, target and destroy certain communities? And at the same time, we had, you know, we had some problems with what to do with those pesky, you know, military armaments and tanks and all of that equipment that we no longer, you know, now that we, you know, had a Cold War de-escalation, we didn't have anyone to actually fight and, you know, take all that military equipment to. Well, what happened is that we transferred it to our police departments and we started militarizing our police. And if you look at the difference between your, you know, local cop, you know, who's walking around on the sidewalk with a nice little uniform and a little hat, as opposed to the batons, the shields, the pepper spray, the mace, you know, the tanks. Saginaw has a tank. Has a tank. So we've militarized our police. These are intentional decisions that have been done by specific administrations, and the accumulation of years, decades of these decisions made very intentionally have repercussions, have very dramatic effects, and it's like Mr. Miner was saying, it's also linked to our educational system. There's a reason why we call it the school to prison pipeline. And it's not just about race. So I'm not up here just saying, hey, it's racial. It's also class-based, there's interest-based, there's corporate money involved. There's a lot of ways that the interests that are making a lot of profit and a lot of money off of this are keeping us at each other's throats.
Okay, we're gonna go right here to the lady in the red sweater, and then we're gonna go back to Dan.
I have like a brief comment, or I guess a rebuttal to this gentleman right in front of me.
His name is Darwin.
Darwin. Hi, Darwin. I'm Naira. Hello. I want you to know who I am.
Yeah, but we got another about 5 minutes,
All right,
so we're gonna take a break.
So, my parents were trying to black nationalists, and they were all about, because my dad was in the Fruit of Islam, so they were all about policing the community and being out in the street, and how much of a danger that was to, I would say, like the larger society of seeing black men who could take down whatever, like through the force of their hands. It was highly dangerous, and the FBI was extremely interested in those things, and my dad currently has a jacket with the FBI. And just growing up in the suburbs, like, it didn't really, personal responsibility is not, I would say, the cause of, or a cause, because when you're trying to like make, just like you're gonna move forward, you're trying to make stuff functioning, you're trying to make your life functioning, you may not necessarily have time for that, but you shouldn't be blamed because you're poor. And I feel like just victimizing victims is foul and should not occur.
Oh, this one. We're gonna go here, then right back here. You?
Me?
Yeah, is it this one with you?
No, back here.
Oh, back here, okay. Okay, I'm like you. Yep, and let's try to stay on course, you all, okay, with the questions.
A lot of the stuff that I've been hearing is based on perception. A lot of what we base stuff off is off of how we perceive and.
So particularly what?
Like the video that I watched, I don't know how many other people saw it, where the guy was waiting to pick up his kids and someone called the cops on him. I was not only disturbed by how the cops reacted, I mean, it literally almost made me cry. Not just that they handcuffed him and tased him in front of his kids, because his kids showed up right as it was happening, but the fact that that person thought that it was okay to call the cops on because, why? Because he was sitting there too long, because he was mean mugging, because maybe he was having a bad day and he looked too serious, or maybe it's just because he was black and they thought, hey, I know the cops will show up. So my issue is, like, how do we get people to, first of all, perceive things differently and not view it automatically jump to that conclusion, but also, too, at what point did the cops go, okay, I showed up to this, I know this person was just trying to start something, there's no real issue here, instead of, I guess, coming at the person and attacking them, maybe, I guess, try to view it first before they automatically jump on that.
Okay, we're gonna take your question in consideration. We're just gonna grab one more, then we're gonna break, okay? Right here in the back. Yeah.
Oh.
Yep.
Hi, my name is Allie Gravity. I'm really concerned about what's happening with the education system here in Flint. And that was kind of touched upon just a minute ago, but I'm just, given what has happened in Ferguson, and we all are aware that the relationship between communities across America and the police is very temperamental, and we all are aware that Flint has high crimes, but with the education system here, specifically with the Flint Public Schools, and I'm getting even more specific, Northwestern High School, I am very upset, confused, why I can go into Northwestern and work with a group of kids, but see a middle school, high school, and adult high school, and all in one institution, decide where the adult high school kids are. There's a gate. There's a gate. So, what kind of messaging are we sending to our youth? And then those kids that are being gated in, or young adults that are being gated in because they have criminal type behavior, they're being ostracized in a way that will perpetuate the same behavior when they get out of there. And these will be the same Mike Browns that'll go to the store and may do something mischievous, like take the cigarillo and then wind up dead. And then what do we do about these kids? Like how are we really, what are we really preparing them for? I mean, are we preparing them properly? I mean, these are supposed to be a part of our public goods that our tax dollars are going towards, putting our kids in an environment that is very hostile. I mean, you have the good kids or kids on one side who are trying to focus, but how can a 12-year-old focus in a building, a learning environment that's overcrowded in the same space with a 19-year-old who was kicked out 2 years ago for threatening teachers, the teachers are afraid and feel like they need to get CCWs because they're being threatened. And that bothers me, as a parent, as a teacher, as someone who's involved in the community, and then seeing what's going on. Where does that leave our babies? I do feel that in that regard, what can we do to help decriminalize our youth? I mean, my cousin is a teenager that goes to Northwestern. He just got suspended for opening a door he wasn't supposed to open for 10 days. 10 days, meaning by the time he get back, it is Christmas break. So he's out to the end of the year for opening the door for someone he wasn't supposed to. I mean, that's a lot of time to be sitting at home having nothing to do.
Or at least he'll be in a building with heat.
Right. Here, let's take this. Dan Curran.
Yep. I just wanted to circle back to the Black Lives Matter, because I feel like we moved on from that without reaching a resolution.
Okay.
So I just wanted to share my perspective on Black Lives Matter. In light of the systemic injustice that we acknowledge and we know exists, Black Lives Matter is not about saying that white lives don't, but it's about pushing back against the idea that black lives don't matter, that is so ingrained in our society.
I think the unspoken part of that is, what you could really say is what they're saying is Black Lives Matter also, even though that's unspoken. I think that's what's meant by the phrase.
That's good. But right now, we're going to go to break, okay? We're going to answer a lot of those questions that went out here, went out with Ali, Renee. And you guys get some coffee, mingle around, discuss, talk, come back. You have about 7 minutes.
I don't want to go.
The focus has completely changed. So you're stripping these children of their creativity, their self-worth, of their confidence. And I feel like it's happening over and over again. Central High School closed, Whittier School. I mean, I used to hang out at the library. That was a cool place to hang out. Not anymore, it's like this system, especially here in Flint, is setting our kids up to fail so that another Mike Brown can go down. And then we can sit there and say, well, he shouldn't have did this and he shouldn't have did that, but
what fostered it.
Exactly.
Right. Yep. And I think that's a very valid concern there.
To your earlier comment,
hold on 1 second, sir. Let's get some people who probably have, let's get this lady here.
I just wanted to piggyback on her comment because I'm a teacher, I'm a high school teacher.
Okay.
The way that the system is set up right now, the things that you're saying are wonderful, but those would have to be people coming into the community to the schools. The way that the education system is set up right now is everything is driven by the Common Core. You have to have those classes, as this lady said right here, the arts, life skills, those things are all dying away because you have to have certain classes according to the state. And the truth of the matter is you have to do it because of testing. You do good in testing is money. Money pays for all those different things. So what is happening with our educational system right now is we have these different prejudices, we have all these different struggles that are going on. They're affecting kids when they take that test. They don't get that score. You don't get that score, your school doesn't get the money. You don't get the money, you can't pay the bills. You can't pay the bills, teachers aren't going to stay. And it's just this tiered effect that's going on right now, where you're automatically putting so many struggles against kids that they cannot be successful at life skills. They cannot get that experience with the arts, with music, and all these different things. The system is set up that way right now to push kids down, especially minority kids. That's just the truth. That's why the Flint school system is dying in some sorts, and in other schools, like I will openly say I work at Flint Carmen Ainsworth. We're in the suburbs, but we have such a diverse setting.
Right.
We know we're next. We're not dumb.
Wow.
And it's just the way the system is set up. And so you sit up there and you look at this and go, how can you keep saying to kids, especially with all the things that are going on, in my opinion, especially, I'm like one of 3 minority teachers in my building.
Right.
So I'm looked at a little differently because they come to me saying, so why is the world the way it is? And so there has to be a way, one, in order to change the system in many different ways, especially in education, so that we're lifting kids up instead of pushing them down. And it's not just a teacher thing, it has to be everyone involved in the community trying to pitch in to get to those things that you're talking about and bring these kids up where they have something and they have a vision that they really believe that they can have. Because right now we say certain things and say that's your vision, they go, how am I supposed to get that with this, and this in the way?
There you go.
Well, it's more insidious than that as well. It's not just this our educational system that's trying to keep kids down, specifically poorer kids or African American kids or kids of color. It's also a corporate structure that is making money. It is a few elite, well, it's not just the charter schools, you have a few, like, for example, Pearson Education is the corporation that is providing the books, the materials. They're involved with the SATs, with the GREs. They're involved with job to work placement, with workforce development curriculum. Their finger is in every pie. They're in every country in the world, and they're growing, by the second, and it's about money. So there's that aspect of it as well that we have to be very, very careful about. It's the corporatization of the school structure. It's about making money off the backs of kids.
I want to go right here to Darwin. Darwin, could you say even your credentials as coming out of the school system and kind of?
Yeah, I've done extensive tutoring and work within the Flint school systems throughout college, from Nethercutt, Summerfield when it was, Longfellow, Southwestern. I've worked among many of the different schools. However, what about school choice? When you talk from a legislative standpoint, and some of the solutions is strictly through school choice, that is something that is not promoted here. Something that has been dominated by one political structure, and we never had any balance to bring other solutions to the educational system. So I wouldn't say that it's just the corporatization of the school system or anything like that. Let's look at the bureaucracy, how unions within the school systems get in the way. When you have poor school teachers who are not producing, who are allowed to just stay in the classrooms and not have any type of punishment geared towards them. So there's so many different areas, and just to make myself very clear, and this will probably be the last statement I'll make, when we talk about personal responsibility, we're talking about a value system that was once in our culture. In fact, during Jim Crow, the African American community was stronger than now. So how is it when we were actually separate, we were stronger? And when you talk about drugs and these things that affected our school systems, because now you have to walk in through a metal detector, drugs is one of the main issues throughout the school. Ronald Reagan was also responsible for bringing down Pablo Escobar, one of the largest and really the one who pressured the Colombian government, where most of the drugs are coming from, to change things around. So when we look at personal responsibility, it is what defies the odds. It is what is saying, without excuse, this has to change. And that was the people and community Martin Luther King once had. He had a community that they went beyond whatever was necessary to bring about the change throughout their community. And a quote from Martin Luther King, and I'll end with this, is there's nothing more dangerous than conscience ignorance, okay? So you gotta understand, these are the concepts and these are the things we're dealing with, because there's nothing more that's systemic than the ignorance throughout our community and the lack of personal responsibility to change things from a corporate structure amongst ourselves to unify together and really make a difference. That is something we have to stand for, and I've seen it from every stage within the community.
So what would you anyone pose, what would be a solution that anyone has, does anyone have in mind a solution to that problem? Because we know there's a problem. We know that the education that's given in these communities aren't sufficient for the skills that these children need.
Just to say this. Okay, let me give you an example.
Go ahead.
Okay, right now, if we were to say,
Celebrate Juneteenth, a time to reflect and rejoice. Join the village. Celebrate African American Independence Day.
Let's get 100 people, parents included, right now to show up to one particular school. Let's put it on the media. I will be the first person that will initiate this. Let's actually develop the summer programs that I've been in witness with throughout Baker College, which has been very successful under the Learning Support and Services. Let's get more after-school programs, even if they have to be community funded through nonprofit initiatives. Myers is a big sponsorship in this. Let's put it together. Let's get together and make these results happen. It's one thing to come to a forum like this, but it's another thing to actually put these things in work. So I'm almost confident most of us are not even familiar with what real personal responsibility is. We're not really that familiar with it. As the young lady spoke on before, she's in the school systems, I guarantee. How many active parents do you see, especially black men? Black men in these communities that are really active and involved. And without this, how can we blame the politicians or the school systems? Do you know in other countries you don't even have public school systems? So how we've managed to neglect such a privilege here. I mean, Oprah had to open up her girls' school in another country. You know why? She said she was more focused, the kids here are more materialized, focused on Air Jordans and iPads and iPods. So you gotta understand, our core values have been completely just, it's been, I mean, seriously, it's been decayed across the board.
And it neutralizes, you know what I mean? It neutralizes the community
So
and even
the
the responsibility.
So the solution is we have to have responsibility and identify the fact there's a lack of parental involvement with kids. We're expecting the schools to produce something we don't do at home. Period. So a lot of us that don't have life skills, what about the parents' responsibility to give us life skills? I mean, I didn't come up with both of my parents, so let me just say that. I was raised by my grandparents. I had to get up under pastors and learn. I had to go to college and get under mentors and learn. I'm currently being mentored by now from different mentors. It's a learning thing, a personal responsibility that defies the odds. You have to live by this. This is a core that cannot be replaced. It's not something of just saying, well, we know that, but there's an excuse. No, let's get it. Let's get 100 people together. Let's go and let's adopt any elementary school, middle school, or any type of high school, and let's make it happen.
As a community.
As a community.
Let's go right here. Courtney.
Courtney or me? Okay.
You.
I can honestly say I didn't agree with a lot of things you said, but I will agree with the fact that I do think more parental responsibility needs to be accounted for. But I want to say something that you said about the school closing. 10 years ago, we was at 20,000 plus students. We're only at 6,000 now. So that's one of the reasons why our schools are closed. Now let's piggyback off of personal responsibility and parents. When the last time anybody been in a school board meeting? If no one goes to a school board meeting and express some of this stuff, I will say that. But there's also more to just going to a school board, because school board does not have any authority really to do anything. Right. And that's where people forget.
They can lobby in Lansing. They can actually make it from the state, and they can go, and I do this every day.
Yeah,
okay, I respect it. But I will say this, and that's true. You guys are nonprofits. There's some things that I also work at Flint Northwestern as a coach, and believe me, I don't go there doing none of my season anymore because I can't deal with kids. I was in a teaching program, I just cut it out. I feel like I'm more effective doing other things than being a teacher at this point in my life. But one thing I've noticed, my niece goes to North Carolina. You brought up a good point. Why don't we hold teachers accountable? We test in October, in November for me. North Carolina test, they do it's called EOG, integrate. They test at the end of the year. If your kids don't pass, if you don't have a certain passing rate at the end of the year, that teacher is put on warning, and then that teacher is suspended, and then that teacher cannot teach in that state. We don't hold our teachers accountable. Now, that's teachers. But I'll also say, you said you go to school. Believe it or not, at the beginning of the school year, they do that. They bring out 100, and they bring out the black men. They do it every year. They walk the kids to the schools. The police are out there. Now, somewhere in between the beginning of the year and the middle of the year, it just stops. They have a program, walk the kids to the schools, because we all know the lights don't work. Our street lights don't work, even though we pay a tax for it. But anyway, I'm a graduate of Flint Northwestern. I'm not going to talk about, you already know my credentials, but the point is, I see plenty of people that I went to school with that came back, they're not nonprofit, they don't do anything. They come up in that school after school and they have their own programs and they're keeping some of them kids there. We all can do it. To my personal responsibility, it's getting out and just doing it. Right. I wasn't going to talk about the school thing because that's a very touchy subject to me because I think there's just so much more about schools that people fail. Because I tell you something else, because she brought up the testing. The testing is biased. I went through my EMU program and they brought out every flaw in the testing and how it is biased towards race and class. And if you ever remember, I always think about different strokes. That day when he asked Arnold how many people can live in a room with 2 bedrooms and he named like 9 kids and they was trying to figure out how can he say 9 kids. But depending on where you live at, you answer according to your situation. That's called social economics. So I didn't want to, I understand, I forgot your name. Darwin. I think you bring up a lot of good points. But we just disagree on some stuff. Personal responsibility is a big thing, but it depends on where you're talking about because depending on where you're from, and I'm not blaming, because believe me, I don't believe in blaming the system and blaming all that because I believe that people make their own decisions in life, but sometimes decisions for you you can get hindered by things in your society and your life. I'm not saying that you can't get out of it, but a lot of times that's what's going on now. And I just got to piggyback off this. I don't know education because you said something about trusting. I'm sorry, but this was like been bothering me the whole time. It's the stigma. If I have a stigma towards the police and the police have a stigma towards me, how can we trust each other when we gotta break the stigma? And it's the same thing. Now you're talking about community. Let's do something with the community. And that's the same thing. Personal responsibility. I want to reach out to my community. No offense, but if I have a stigma towards the dude down the street, I can't trust him either. And I'm just saying that's where the solutions come from that. And I just got to bring up one more thing. I think it's great that you're here, but we know half the police in Flint is not just Flint police no more. It's the state board. We got to have them here too because, I'll be honest, I don't see too many African American state boys and I can't stand the state police right now. And I have my own, I just feel like I was just sharing with somebody else. I had 15 guns pointed at my head last month. But when my military ID failed, I'm good.
Yep.
Just like Pastor Richardson was just saying, I think he gone now. Pastor Richardson said he got pulled over in his own church. And when he said he the pastor, they said, oh, okay, you a pastor. What? So, it goes both ways. And then it's the same, I'm trying to say a lot because it all kind of go back into the education. I'm sorry. But when you start when you talk about education, these kids, and I know these kids don't have no hope. Right. And when they see the Mike Browns in the air, I was just sitting here, I was reading my phone, I just got a poem from this guy named South. We only 15. And it so happened, it was about this. And he was telling me in the poem, he brings up his 5-year-old brother said, I don't trust the police. Just bring it up, but DeSable told me all the time, he was like, we talk about school, he was like, what's the point of going to school? This city dead. I'm just living in the street. The hope is gone. And I'm gonna say one more thing, I'm gone. A couple of people left and asked me to bring up stuff so because they know how I bring it up. Mayor Wallen, they asked, you're here, and we got the same procedures as a couple of other places. Are you willing to change some of the procedures that's held, I'm trying to remember how he said, held accountable against us as far as the police officers? If the police officers attack us, let's just use that example, if the police officers hit us, they don't get charged, just use that example. But if I hit a police officer, I'm charged.
Assault and battery only goes one way.
It only goes one way. But they were talking about, I can't remember exactly how he brought it up. He was talking about, are you willing to look at the procedures that we have in our police force now to change some of the stuff, because they're the same procedures as other states that's having the same problem. And no offense to them, we all know, I'm being honest with you, nobody care about body cameras anymore.
Let's get this gentleman right here. Yep.
Hi, as a, Jeremy Royer, as a Blackfoot Native American that was not raised on the reservation, there's a couple things. One quick point is punishment. You know, nobody does punishment regarding personal responsibility like the United States. When you look at our education, look at our society, how is punishment working? Rhetorical question. It's not working. It's really a dumb idea. The second thing is history of education regarding from the perspective of a Native American. Education began by religious white assholes kidnapping Native American children from the reservation, torturing, killing, and assimilating them to white values. It was intended for them to fail, and that still carries on today. Children from different cultures, from different walks of life are failing because they cannot be assimilated by a white world. And now, on the positive perspective, what can we do to change things? When I look and read some of the articles coming from reservations, what they're doing, they're not asking white religious people, white corporations to give them money. They had legislation, they advocated for it so the reservations can design schools, including colleges, around their culture, around their community. So therefore Pearson and all these other rich assholes cannot profit off of just simply educating children. They let the communities, and they have the funding, independently come so the communities can design the education curriculum so their children can succeed.
Okay. See, right here. Yep, Kevin. Hey, what's up?
Hey, everybody.
Hey.
So I may go in a different direction here, so just bear with me. I'm not going to take long.
Preach, brother.
But the thing that disturbed me about, the Ferguson situation is what I call like the hypocrisy from both sides. The hypocrisy. That's what really. So, when the thing happened, everybody, every African American that was there that seen something actually said something, right? But when that happens, when it's not a white person who kills a black person, no one says anything. No one says anything. And so my hypocrisy, or my disgust is when we talk about personal responsibility, black people at some point have to say, hey, if we're going to get our neighborhoods together, we need to respect ourselves first and foremost. There is a problem. There is a racism problem, right?
Right.
But we need to take responsibility and say, okay, DeMonte killed Trayvon the other day. We all know what happened. We need to work with the police, even though there's some tension there with the police. We need to say, okay, let's put our foot forward and take responsibility for our community. The second thing is the hypocrisy that I see on the other end. We say Black Lives Matter from a white perspective, but no one's going back into the community and living there. No one's living there.
There we go.
No one's living there. So we're taking the intellectual capital out, and then now you got this implosion and this spiral. But we say Black Lives Matter when one situation happened. If it matters so much to you, move back in, mentor, learn and get an understanding of these people, of us. Bill, I mean, how many people got black friends that they know intimately? How many people got black friends that they know intimately and can discuss these things? That's my disgust with the situation, because we're not willing to acknowledge that. Like, I don't want to stay in the African American community. They're killing each other. That's what white people say. Guess what black people say? As soon as I get some money, I'm out. So, I mean, the hypocrisy was there's a clear issue with profiling and black on black crime and the education system. But the last time I checked, like, the white man didn't sleep with my mom and didn't tell me he didn't sleep with my mom. My dad did, and he dipped. You know what I'm saying? He's gone, and I had to find a way. It was by the grace of God that I'm a man today. But you can't blame that on the white guy. You know what I'm saying? You can't blame that. In the same way, you can't blame urban decay and all that stuff just totally on African Americans. There's a systematic. Yeah, it's a systematic thing that's in place. Yeah. And so, white people, you gotta understand. Hey, what am I doing to help this? What am I speaking out on? When I see this, am I connecting my black friends to the networks and the resources that I have. Am I doing that, or am I being selfish? So it's a hard issue. That's all I gotta say.
And can I piggyback off of what he said?
I want to ask a question.
Yeah, go ahead, yep.
So, I'm that white guy. Honestly, I live in Swartz Creek. Everybody out there is mostly racist. I can tell you because they think they can talk to me like that and it's okay.
Yeah.
How do I fix the fact that when I go down, I work on the east side of Flint. I have an IT company, I'm all over the place. When I go down to like Brothers Party Store, I'm getting,
That's what I'm talking about.
but that's it. So like I walk in the store and people are meat mugging me. Like nobody messes with me because of my size and they just, but I mean that like, how do I break that barrier? Like what am I supposed to do? Having a conversation here, I don't care about the cameras. I can handle the cameras if somebody wants to record me. I can delete it one way or another. IT guy. But how do I fix that from a social standpoint?
So it's like, how does he get involved?
I would say, do you have any black friends?
Yep.
Yeah.
I think that
Right here.
start-
She may be white in color, but, she graduated Central, she's on the east side, but I mean, even like having that conversation. No, I gotta point him out. See, this is what's happening. Like, who's your black friend? And I gotta point him out.
I'm just saying that because at the end of the day, it's gonna take you to take some personal risk and say, you know what? I don't really know any African Americans like that. Let me move to their community and see what they're really experiencing.
Or visit.
Or visit. Or just say, hey, let me get in here. Adoption. I mean, hey, it's a lot of different things that you can do. Those are the only thing I come on top of my head, but I mean, getting some black friends and really saying, okay, like, what is your real struggle? I don't understand it. Like, and you tell me, and I'll try to see if I can use a friend of mine said this, so don't take this, my whiteness to help you out. So I'm saying though, like, that's just a personal relationship and really understanding somebody. Yeah. I mean, and I'll say this real quick and I'm gonna be done. I grew up in Flint, West McClellan, and Martin Luther King, the north side. I grew up on Root Street. I mean, that's bad over there. But I went to Flint Southwestern, I graduated, got a basketball scholarship, went way out to Casper, Wyoming. Now, it's, but it was good for me. It was good for me. Came back home, went to University of Maryland Eastern Shore. That's all black, right? So I get this dynamic. Lived in my park, now I stay on Wilcox Street. Wilcox Street is not the greatest, but it was an intentional thing because I wanted to not just talk and run my mouth. I wanted to go back to an area which is a drug street to say, okay, I'm not going to call the police on you. I want to help y'all out with the education that I've had. And my family's there, and it's actually a church venture, but I'm saying, hey, I can talk and do all that, but where's my heart really at? So we moved in, and we're building great relationship. It's still selling drugs, but they respect us. We have conversations. We're trying to get some people to come over, and that's my personal responsibility as a black man in my community to go back, take my intellectual capital, take my heart, my love for them, and go back in. So, but I would say, grab some people in here. Like, it's plenty of black guys in here. Get some relationships, get some phone numbers, and say, hey man, I'm
He's a good guy too.
Hey, here we go, right here. So I mean, right here. I think that's the first thing.
There you go. Let me get her right there in the red.
Okay, Naira.
Naira.
Yes.
So sorry, there's so many names to remember. I know a lot of y'all though.
I mean, I have two quick comments and then a question for the panelists. One is, I think it's a danger when, I would say, when we kind of conflate black on black crime with murders by the police, because police are agents of the state. Now, if I come in with a gun and plow everyone down in this room, I'm Naira. I am not a police officer. So I think that, and we don't discuss the white on white crime that happens across the country too, but usually like when this conversation questions when someone unarmed or someone who is murdered by the police, it's like, well, what about the black on black crime? Because I think that usually like when we have these sort of discussions, like trying to individualize it without discussing the superstructure of what's happening is doing us a kind of a disservice. And I would say like and then the other thing is he kind of shared what personal responsibility meant to him. But for me to have a dialogue, I need to know from the panelists, what is personal responsibility? Because I think that's also a thing, like when we talk about systemic issues, like when we try to individualize it, it kind of gives people a pass to try to address the systemic stuff that's occurring. So what does personal responsibility mean to the panelists?
And I knew someone would bring up the phrase black on black. I was just kind of waiting for that. The fact of the matter is that the majority of crime is intraracial, which means that it's whatever, black on black, white on white, it's done by someone you know. So it's usually done by an acquaintance or a family member. And that's, regardless of race. So saying black on black is a red herring. It's just going to distract the conversation. It's not relevant. The fact of the matter, it's not relevant in terms of this conversation when we're talking about police accountability and police brutality, and the issue is on Ferguson. So black on black crime is a red herring. Black, young, African-American males are 21 times more likely to be killed by the police than their white counterparts. And that is a fact. And that is the issue, and that is the discussion here.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that we got to be careful, because I think what the African American community is saying, when that question is turned around onto them, say, hey, well, why don't you deal with this in your own community? I think what most of them would say or would think, but may not articulate, is no, it's being dealt with in the community. We call the authorities. People are being locked up, right, when they commit these crimes. But it's when those who are saying they are protecting us from crime are killing us. And I think that poses a different perspective to where I don't see them as, in a sense, like, well, such and such died. Well, you know what I mean? Psh, dad. You know what I mean?
Also where they're armed with military-grade weapons.
There you go.
That's a huge difference.
And so it's like, yo, you're to protect us against this in our own community, but now we're being killed. Now who do we look to? And I think that's the ultimate question that most African Americans are asking when they're questioned with the question of black on black crime and accountability in their own neighborhood. They need a force as well.
Can you guys answer her question though?
Yeah, I want to know what personal responsibility means, because I'm a racial justice trainer, and part of it is creating common context. So we need to know what we're all talking about.
I think,
and not in just this, by the way.
And not in just this. Okay, so
what we're talking about.
Right, and I think Kevin kind of hit the ball a little bit to where he talked about what was personal responsibility for him practically, like where his life is, where he lives, and what are the problems, what are the issues in his community that he can get involved in. And I think all of us have that responsibility, but are we looking for it? Are we involved in it? We all live in Flint neighborhoods, but can we actually honestly ask ourselves, like, am I problem solving within the neighborhood? Hey, these kids aren't being educated. Can I open up some way to get them educated? Is there a tutoring thing I could start in the neighborhood? Police to citizen relationships. Like, I think that's what will define personal responsibility. If you're looking in your neighborhood and looking at the problems and the things that are going on and just getting involved. Is that fair?
Well, one of the things about personal responsibility is that I'm sitting on this panel and not on my cell phone.
Here.
I'm sorry, but there are people calling me and citizens texting me about things, and I have to answer that. Unfortunately, I don't have that ability where I say
Let's
I
keep
can't
it
do
clean.
that.
Let's keep it clean.
Can I defend something just briefly, just so we can get a better sense? I think I helped get this in the same direction. looking, you said, what do we turn to? We turn to the same sources as our forefathers who overcame during the civil rights movement. They turned to God and they turned to themselves. Okay, and it was through the unity in the community that pushed Washington to change legislation. Okay, and so when you say what is personal responsibility, it is using the God-ordained power that God has given each and every human being to simply solve our problems. Not making an excuse for it, going beyond the odds. Now here it is, this officer, he's has a badge, he's on call. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's the chief here, and you know, the tax is unnecessary. However, I will say this as well, because Kevin, you walked out when this was actually said. They said not to bring up black on black crime because that's more of a distraction for this type of forum. And I'll be honest, it's that type of mentality that has had the black community so divided and so ignorant. I made an attempt to really quote a quote by Martin Luther King, and he said, there's nothing more dangerous than conscious ignorance, okay? And you gotta understand this. And the stupidity and the consciousness, the sincere ignorance and the conscious stupidity that runs in our community is just, it's outrageous.
So we need to talk about, well, I'm concerned
I'll let
that
you
you,
talk.
no, you know what?
Hold on 1 second.
No,
let me talk.
Let me finish really quick.
He's taking the floor. When Nair
let me
asked a
finish.
question.
Hold on.
Yeah.
This is a public forum.
Gian has had her
Let
hand
me
up
finish my
for 20
statement.
minutes.
Let me finish my
But
statement.
you was interrupted.
I will say
Yeah, one minute.
I got look,
1
quicker
minute.
than that. So with that being said, you want to know the statistics? Go down to your local police station
Well, I'll
and
say it
ask
right
them.
now.
Wait a minute.
Hold on,
Ask
wait a
them.
second.
Go down to the police station of any county, any city, and ask them for the statistics on race and demographics. They will tell you that it's less than a 1% chance that a black person is going to be killed by another white police officer. It's almost a 95% chance that another black person is going to be harmed by another black person. We're 12% of the population. And with abortion and so many other things that are the issues now, when you have nearly 5,000 babies being aborted, Roe versus Wade, 50 million since then, come on, that is the real injustice in our community. So God bless you, and I'm out here.
All right.
So he takes up the floor for
let's
quite a
get-
significant amount of time and then just walks out. It's not a community
All right,
conversation.
let's get this gentleman here.
Hold on.
Wait.
No longer.
Hold on.
I'm sorry.
Wait a minute, everybody else, hold on,
Gia.
everybody in the room, say, and
Wait
I
a
have my
second,
hand
wait a
up.
second. Hold on.
But no, Gia has had her hand up the longest.
No.
And
Who had their hand up over here?
this woman right
Okay,
here has been
okay.
sitting in the
Let's
front
get
for
it.
20 minutes.
There you go. Okay, yep, let's let the gentleman speak.
It's no longer relevant, but to your first comment about parenting responsibility. A long time ago, I taught a parenting class from Mount Adult High School. I never met a parent who didn't want to be a good parent, but they were not informed well. And I want to tell you that some simple points made in the parenting class at Mount Adult High School, night class, 10 weeks, I've run into many people since then who tell me, I learned about, and you know, simple thing like when a kid is crying in the grocery store, saying, I want that pop, I want that pop, and the parents give in. Instead of doing that, I used to say, buy the kid a box of crayons.